Lots more folks coming in. All right. Well, we are a minute past, so I will kick us off while other folks continue to join us. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us for Tipping Point, Connecticut's first affordable housing conference series virtually. My name is Chelsea Ross. I'm Deputy Director here at the Partnership for Strong Communities. And throughout the week, the partnership is hosting over 30 sessions featuring local, state, and national experts leading conversations that explore challenges, share best practices, and coalesce us around critical next steps to address key affordable housing issues in our state. If this is your first session, welcome. If this is a repeat session, you're welcome for getting that introduction again. You can join the conversation about Tipping Point at hashtag TippingPoint2020 on Twitter and follow us at PSC Housing if you aren't already. This session is titled, What's New in Connecticut Housing Data Tools? We have a very exciting presentation from our own Sean Gio, Policy Director at the Partnership, and Christopher Brecklin, Senior Program and Data Analyst at the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, or CHFA. They will walk us through the partnership's newly released housing data profiles and demonstrate some of the interactive data reporting and data dashboard tools available from CHFA. So before I turn it over to Sean and Christopher, I'd like to thank our leading sponsors, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and the Melville Charitable Trust. Their substantial support has allowed this conference series to exist. Thank you to our collaborating sponsor, the Connecticut Department of Housing, and to our supporting sponsors, Housing Enterprises and Whittlesey. And a big thank you to the sponsors for this session, Liberty Bank and Fairfield County Community Foundation. Both have generously funded the creation of the housing data profile. So thank you for their support for that work, as well as this session. A few housekeeping items as we get started. The session is being recorded and we will make all the recordings available to conference attendees as soon as possible. All participants have entered muted. Please remain on mute unless a presenter asks you to unmute. If you have a technology issue, please select the chat icon in the Zoom control panel. It's either at the bottom or the top of your screen, and send it in the chat to PSC Zoom Meetings 2. I think that's my name today. Or you can also send it to Charlie Shaddix. We will do our best to assist you. Today's presenters, Sean and Christopher, will let you know how they would like content questions to be submitted, either via chat or otherwise. In a few minutes before the end of the session, I'll launch a poll that asks you for feedback on the session. Please take a minute to share and help us improve our future webinars and conference offerings. And lastly, Partnership for Strong Communities is working to better understand the needs of our community and affordable housing partners. So we really want to learn from you. Toward the end of the session, I'll be sharing a link to a survey in the chat. Please take a few minutes after the session to share your feedback with us and shape both the issues we work on and the ways that we work. I've been saying it takes 5 minutes to complete, but I've logged in now to see as folks have been completing, and the average time to complete it is 5 minutes and 14 seconds. So I've been lying to you. It should take you an average of 5 minutes and 14 seconds. So if you have that to spare, we would really appreciate it. So I'll now turn it over to Sean and Christopher.
Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you for your honesty about the survey. That's I'm looking at the attendance and I see a lot of friends, so hopefully this will be interesting to all of you. I'm really excited to feature our new housing data profiles and give you a glimpse into a lot of the data and data visualizations that the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority has been building over the last couple of years. This session really is not long enough to dig into all of the great work that CHFA has done in their presenting data. Is just a wealth of information and data there, and I hope this will encourage you all to look more deeply at what they have to offer. So I'm going to try to share my screen, and hopefully that will work for everyone. Can you see my? All right, I got the thumbs up from Chelsea. All right. I'm never going to be a pro at this, just to be honest. So this is what's new in Connecticut Housing Data Tools, as Chelsea mentioned. And there we go. And she already introduced us, but just remember, again, I'm the Policy Director at the Partnership for Strong Communities, and Christopher Brecklin, who you'll hear from shortly, he's a Senior Program and Data Analyst at CHFA. and is a member of the, and I'm going to get this wrong, Christopher, the Planning and Evaluation Department. I know I'm missing one, but you can research. I don't know how I forgot that one of all the ones to forget. I'm sorry. I saw Jonathan Cabral on here, so I'll take my whippings later for John for forgetting research. Anyway, I wanted to first just mention, this is what's new in housing data in Connecticut. It's what are some of the things that are new. We're at this great moment in my career working in housing data, where a confluence really of a lot of collaboration among practitioners and just a lot of new, fun, exciting tools for folks that like data. And these are just a few of the folks that are that have working on or released some really exciting data tools. Desegregate Connecticut, I just want to mention, they're doing this deep dive research into every zoning ordinance in the state. That's just one of the things they're up to. And one of the groups that I did not put their logo up here, which I regret, is PARC, which is research organization for public housing authorities nationally, which we have the luck of having them based right here about a half a mile from my house in Cheshire, Connecticut. And they do incredible research on understanding not what in this case, what I wanted to let you know about is a housing preservation database that they maintain, and has incredible deep information on the complete range of subsidized housing across the country, and a lot of very detailed information on that. So please check them out. So our housing data profile, some of you are familiar with them. We began, the first edition, I believe, was in 2011. You can see that that on the left side of the screen. It was a PDF, printable PDF. We made 169 municipal profiles, one for every municipality in the state, and along with one for each county, and a statewide profile. And is really trying to draw in one place a quick reference for relevant data for housing, around housing, for really consumption at the local level, and presented it in a way that was meant for a user that wasn't engrossed in housing data or data itself that often. So we're really talking about trying to make this approachable. So since then we've had several editions. I believe the fourth edition was in 2018. On the right, you can see the presentations changed somewhat. These are about 6-page PDFs, but it's still a PDF. So after that version, I really felt it was important to move to an online platform, and we teamed up. First, let me again reiterate what Chelsea was saying. We teamed up first with Connecticut Data Collaborative, which, if you don't know, is really a premier place in Connecticut for getting data and translating data and telling data stories to folks that need that data, regular citizens, of local officials, whomever, in ways that are tremendously accessible. They're great data storytellers. So we then, as Chelsea mentioned, Fairfield County's Community Foundation and the Liberty Bank Foundation were both very generously have underwritten the development of this first edition of the online version of the profiles. And just to mention one more thing about Connecticut Data Collaborative, if you have an opportunity, if you're not familiar with them, go to their website, Connecticut Data Collaborative. There's an amazing amount of information on there. If you have a need for census information, they have an incredibly easy interface on there to look for. You can extract quite a lot of census data on there. Also, they are stopped for me and my wife pretty much every day. Their COVID-19 data is presented in a very accessible way. And there's just a lot of other information. So please check them out. They're great partners, and I can't say enough about them. So on October 29th, I believe, we launched this latest version of the profiles. And I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough and try not to take too much time. Just give you a quick walkthrough of the profiles. Hopefully this will work. Okay, Christopher, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see my website?
Yes.
Not yet. Oh, you can. Okay, thanks. So the landing page, you could find this if you go to our homepage on pschousing.org. So again, there's a profile for every municipality in the state, every county, statewide. We still have the ability to print down a PDF version. Right now, Hartford is selected from the town, and you can see right below there, you can print off a PDF version, which is really, I think visually is really great to use. It's simple to use. Then we've also linked to another product of Connecticut Data Collaborative, their town profile. They produce, I believe, every year a broader community profile, includes some of this, a couple of the same indicators that we have in here. You start there, and then along here you can see we have a few places where you could jump to different sections. The housing section, the affordability section, population demographic section, or you could switch to a comparison interface, which I'll explain in a minute. So it begins with some key findings, things that we as the partnership housing advocates feel like are some indicators that are, if you're only going to look at these are ones we want you to know about. And in Hartford, you could see cost burden households that spend more than 30% of their income on rent. That's 54% of renters. And you can see housing wage, which is something that's calculated every year by the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Affordable housing, that's off of the state's affordable housing appeals list, the percentage of units in the municipality, and so on. And then we get into some very core information around the housing stock in this community. I'm going to pick someone besides Hartford. We'll pick somebody at random. I'm going to go with East Hartford, and we'll see. So you can see here in East Hartford is going to be compared to its county in Connecticut. This is what the units of structure, what the housing mix looks like comparatively, bedrooms, occupancy, so forth. You can, if a lot of these things, if you hover over them, you're going to get more information. So this is broken out by owner occupied, resident occupied, or vacant, and as a percentage. But if you want to know the number of units, you can hover over them. So again, I just want to stop for a second and say, this is really a curated set of indicators. These are things that we think are important for local folks to know about their housing, the housing environment in their community. There's a lot more data obviously available, and you'll see some of it from Christopher, but there's a lot of other sources. So often if I will get calls from folks that are interested in other data, housing data, and I'm always happy to try to point you in the right direction. And also we're interested if you feel like there's something really missing from the profiles. So our hope is to have regular updates, versions of this as we go forward. That'll be easier to implement now that it's an online platform. So I won't walk through all of the indicators and just try to select a few that I think are really worth noting. We collect building permit data from the state of Connecticut, and you could see you're going to see something like this in a lot of the towns, and you could see the state. And this is East Hartford. There's very little development that's been going on in the last decade after the housing crash. We've, in our work, I failed to mention our partnership with Sustainable Connecticut, which I hope you're all aware of, that great organization. We're trying to integrate some data around energy use. So heating fuel type, and you could see, in many communities, you're going to see a difference between the types of fuel used in single family homes and homeowner versus rental, and age of the units as well. The rental stock is typically much older than the owner stock. So we hope that's useful information. And then really the core of it, of our profiles, is getting into affordability measures. What I mentioned, the housing wage. We try to include explanations for each of these indicators, because a lot of these are terms of art. Assisted housing units, even what that means. The state collects that data annually from every municipality. Um, and then down here, this is housing burden I mentioned. Folks that are paying really too much for their housing costs. There's two measures that we typically talk about. One is being housing cost burdened, paying more than 30%, and then severely cost burdened, folks that are paying more than half of their income on their housing costs. And you can see, again, this is East Hartford compared to the county in Connecticut. And you can see in East Hartford, homeowners without a mortgage, just for example, there's a significant number of them that are burdened versus the rest of the state. In renters, you could see it looks pretty similar to the state. So I don't want to take up too much of the time for, because Christopher has a lot to display, but I just want to, before I end, I want to show you a new feature, which is a comparative feature. And I'm going to pick just a couple of places. I live now in Cheshire, and I previously lived in Windsor, so let's pick Windsor. And now you can look across three communities. In this case, the state, I left the state of Connecticut up as a reference, and then you can look at Cheshire and Windsor in comparison to each other. So I'm going to look at, jump down to affordability. Assisted units, you could say, so this is assisted units, as you can think of as the affordable housing, the amount of affordable housing that, and in the state of Connecticut, that represents about 11, almost 12% of the stock. And you could see that that's not carried evenly across the state. And just in this little sample demonstrates that. Only 3.8 of Cheshire stock is assisted, while 7.5%, still below the average for the entire state, is in Windsor. So I'm really proud of this comparative feature. I feel like I hope that it becomes more of a common tool in conversations about some of this disparity between communities and the housing supply in communities, and some of the conversations about exclusionary zoning. It's not an accident that some of these communities have a lot more assisted housing than others. It's not an accident when we look at building permits that some towns have very few building permits for anything other than single family homes. Of course, the market drives some of that, but it's not just the market. So I will end there because I want to leave time for questions. And I will, right now, I'm going to hand it off to Christopher and try to go back to my slides. Let's see if that's going to work. So hopefully that worked. And Chris, all right. Yeah, thumbs up. Go ahead, Christopher.
Well, I'd like to start off and just say thank you to the partnership and Sean for helping, for giving us a chance to share a lot of the work that our research team has been doing at CHFA, and to really say that it's exciting to have the profiles up online right now, interactive, and they're just going there, especially in this format, it's a very powerful tool for the community. So again, my name is Christopher Brecklin. I work on the research team, the planning, research, and evaluation team at CHFA. And a lot of the work that we do, we have we have a really great team of folks that bring together different skills from GIS and analysis, economics, and planning to the table so that we can try to complement a lot of the work that other organizations are doing on affordable housing. And in case anyone is unfamiliar with us, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority's mission is to alleviate issues related to affordable housing, and really help finance affordable housing for low and moderate income families. If you could please just go back one on the slides. So what we've, in the last couple of years, we've been putting together a number of different reports and dashboards. And a lot of the focus for us is to have a neutral perspective and provide information on Connecticut's housing market and some of the conditions in Connecticut's communities. So next slide, please. And then to complement some of the reports that we've been publishing over the last few years, our data team has been working to build out a data platform. And for us, we use a tool that most people may not be familiar with called Domo. And what Domo allows us to do is create a centralized and standardized sort of data warehouse upon which we can build a number of different dashboards. And it allows for two key components of our work, which are agility and automation. So most of our data, we don't have to continuously upload it manually, and we're able to just kind of plug into other databases and have our dashboards update themselves, which really allows us to get a lot more done. And as you can see in our data sets right now total about almost 10 million rows, and we combine almost 100 different data sets to try to create as much insight as we can. Next slide, please. Thank you. So today I just wanted to highlight, we have a number of different dashboards and reports that are up. Everything on our research page you can look at. We have legislative reports that we do, like the 837BB. We have fair lending reports. We combined multiple years of HMDA data into a dashboard. We have CHFA's data. One of the things that a lot of people may not always know is that CHFA has a wealth of data just from our own operations. And so you can go online and see real-time rolling 5 years of data about our first-time home buyer programs. And then another program that we started about a year ago is creating monthly and quarterly market dashboards that show a number of data points and indicators that people may not be used to seeing about Connecticut's housing market. And our focus generally is, as I mentioned, to complement the work that other organizations are doing. So for example, we don't want to duplicate the housing market, the profiles that the partnership does, but we do want to provide additional context, whether it's through long-term indicators or just sort of integrated data sets in a way that people may not be used to. I think, the next slide, did we have another slide, Sean? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And the goal here is to walk you through a couple of our dashboards so that you can go online and get an idea for yourselves about what we have to offer. So right now we're going to take a look at this. And so the first one I'd like to show you is actually related to our data bulletin, which will be hitting inboxes this afternoon. So shameless plug, you can go to chfa.org, sign up for the newsletter, you put your email in on the homepage, and then on the next screen, you'll check the box for the housing market sort of data bulletin. And this first one is our quarterly market dashboard, just to show you that this market focuses on indicators that are very specific that change on a quarterly basis. So for example, the FHFA puts out a house price index, and there's data that is valuable on different Connecticut statewide and submarkets that you can get about how the housing market is doing. And so this dashboard will specifically show some of that. And the functionality of all the Domo dashboards is relatively the same. So we'll usually have some kind of a date selector. So you'll notice if we slide this, it will automatically begin to adjust the data that you're seeing and change some of the indicators in the comparison that's there. But we can quickly turn that off. And if we're looking here, this data that we have is one of the great things that we're able to provide in our dashboards, which is the Warren Group single family home sales data that we have for Connecticut. And we have 20 years of data and about 1 million home sale records, property sale transactions for Connecticut. And you can see in this specific chart just the full span. And one of the remarkable things that's happening in Connecticut right now is actually that our median sale price is reaching levels that we haven't seen since 2007. And in our monthly dashboard, you'd see that the August sale price is the highest that it has been since 2007, median sale price. In Connecticut, especially more so than a lot of other places, average home price is useful and interesting to see, but it's usually very highly skewed because of the density of higher value homes that we have. So these charts, you can filter by the categories, but you can also drag them to just look at the time span that you're interested in, and it will begin to filter the entire dashboard by these same characteristics. So we'll look at this smaller span here, Q3 2012 through 2020, and you'll see that the whole dashboard has been filtered for this. So we have actual home sales transactions, we have CHFAs, average and median price paid by our first-time home buyers, and we have foreclosure information for Connecticut, which is also provided by the Warren Group. We're able to, although this data is, the Warren Group data is purchased by CHFA, we are able to provide it in forms like this dashboard so that you can, in aggregate, so whether it's by geography or other types. And we have building permits data. Another great thing that we have on these dashboards that you probably won't find somewhere else is we have over 500,000 records of building permits that come directly from the Census Bureau. This data allows us to take a look at Connecticut specifically, but on different reports in the future, we have it all the way down to the town level for Connecticut. And again, we have the FHFA data, so you can compare metro areas, and you can compare, some of the statewide to our sort of peer states in New England and New York. This data, you might notice, is not updated. For some reason, this data is usually 2 months behind on its updates. We also include certain things that you may not associate with housing in Connecticut, and that's the unemployment rate. And we look at employment in general in sectors that are related to housing, so real estate, finance, and construction, to try to get an idea of the trends and things that might be affecting the housing market. And at the bottom of our dashboards here, we also have aggregate by town and time period. We have the actual information from the Warren Group aggregated that you actually are able to, on some of our dashboards, export. One other feature that is really powerful about our dashboards, Andrew on our team combined HMDA data, which is the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. And if anyone isn't familiar, this is basically just about fair lending practices, and every lending institution reports. And this data is provided at the census tract level, but it's a cumbersome data set. To combine from 2007 to 2019 is almost 3 million records. So very few people really get the chance to look at this whole data in aggregate across the entire time period. And in 2018, they changed some of the reporting. And so Andrew on our team went through and crosswalked the data and outlined a methodology so that we could continue comparing this important data set across time. So you'll see here that you can filter by county, by year, MSA. You can filter by loan amounts by using these sliders. But the feature that I wanted to highlight and try to keep us on track here is that HMDA data is provided, as I mentioned, at the census tract level. So you can actually go in here on this dashboard and select a specific census tract and continue comparing all of the characteristics that get reported about lending in Connecticut. And you'll see that we have the actual demographics of borrowers are filtered when you select a specific census tract. So you have age, gender, or excuse me, gender and race and ethnicity. You have denial reasons, and you can go census tract by census tract and compare. And if you want to select and compare different towns, or just remove the filter altogether and go back to look at the state as a whole, this entire dashboard will filter. And what makes it remarkable is just how quickly a lot of it is able to be filtered. In this case, let's say you wanted to just filter by Black or African American borrowers. You could filter that for the entire state of Connecticut, and then you can go back up and you can look at the density and how that borrowing works by loan amounts and numbers of originated loans by census tract. And you'll see that much of Connecticut maybe has very few loans originated to Black or African American borrowers outside of certain parts of Connecticut. And you can continue to zoom in and filter and understand about denial reasons and things like that. So the idea with a lot of these dashboards is to make it easy for folks to explore, and that as a partner, we try not to provide them with too much context or too much analysis, so that folks are able to go in there from all walks and really discover things for themselves. And whether you're a policymaker or an advocate or a builder, a developer, we try to provide as much information as possible to help you make the best decisions about how to promote affordable housing in Connecticut.
Thanks, Christopher. So we've left some time for questions. We've gone through a lot of content pretty quickly. So first, I just want to say, Christopher, that I really just want to reiterate that folks should really check out the depth of data that CHFA continues to put on its website. And the HMDA data in particular, if you haven't had a need to use HMDA data, really, it's worth checking out what Andrew's put together. The data is very difficult to work with normally. I've wanted to look at it for many years and had never been able to really invest that kind of time in it. So this is a very valuable tool that CHFA's created, and you may not know that you can make use of it. So take some time and explore their website, and particularly that HMDA dashboard, because that's not something I've seen before. So Christopher, I have a question about the file. So I'll just start with, future things. Are there things that you guys are working on that you are in a position to be able to talk about, or things that you would like to extend on the existing, the existing data dashboards that you have available?
Well, there was one thing that I actually forgot to mention, and that's that the resources I shared today are what we make available to the general public, because its partnership is absolutely essential to what CHFA does, and we want to make sure that we're providing as much as we can to our community partners. And internally, we also use the same software to be able to very quickly iterate on different dashboards. So a lot of the things that we're working on now are to streamline some of our internal processes and save people who might spend a week or more working on a report, and just completely automate those reports and build internally facing dashboards to help different departments. And that's really a lot of what we're focused on right now in terms of that. And and trying to provide more context. So as I mentioned, with the market profiles, we have a lot of data that isn't displayed in those profiles because it can be a little bit tricky to work in the different geographies. If, let's say, we have town level for the building permits data, but we don't necessarily have town level for the number of people employed in the banking sector. So trying to find the most efficient ways to crosswalk those things can be a little bit tricky, and make sure that everything stays interactive. But a lot of it is working on really kind of building up CHFA internally and supporting our operational units.
So folks, if any of you have any questions, if you could enter into the chat, and while I'm waiting for that, I'll maybe ask a couple more of my own. Christopher, what's the best way for if folks feel like they could benefit from gaining access to some of your data, or what's publicly present, but also they're not quite sure about some of these other data sets that you just mentioned. What's the process for that? What's your ability to work share certain data? I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that.
So normally for us, if it's a purchase data set, where it depends on the agreement that we have with the organization. And if it's a public data set, let's say the census data, or so, you know, private being the Warren Group data, where we do have a special agreement in place, but something like the census building permits or data that we use from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's data that we're definitely open to share. And then when it comes to any of our internal data, things like our single family lending data, we definitely have a review process that we go through to make sure that we're protecting everybody's privacy and sensitive information relative to that, and providing information as we're able to. The same thing goes for, you know, our multifamily data. You know, we go through a review process and make sure that we're sharing everything appropriately. And so, and you can reach me. It's Christopher.Brecklin@chfa.org. Happy to entertain requests, because we do you know, value transparency greatly, and want to, again, be good partners. So if there's something that we can provide, we want to try to make sure that we do.
Thanks, Christopher. So again, if anyone has a question, I don't see any in chat. Please maybe raise your hand now, or otherwise we can wrap up. And again, I would say that play with these tools, and particularly with the housing data profiles I mentioned, they're new. So we're interested in seeing what's, from users' perspective, what's missing, what could be highlighted more, if there's errors. I had a question just yesterday from New Fairfield that questioned the state whether or not there's an error in the population projection data that we have on there, which showed them losing, I forget now, but maybe 30% of their population over the next 20 years. I checked the state data center, and that is in fact the case for many of our small towns in Connecticut. That's just the kind of insights I think that I'm hoping that folks can get from looking at our profiles. Let's see.
Sean, I just wanted to throw in there that so I put the link to our research page in the chat box for everyone. We're a little bit buried, so if you go to chfa.org, you have to click About Us, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the Planning, Research, and Evaluation link, and you can get the information there. And again, you can reach out directly to us and ask those questions. I'm interested, Sean, on what your plan is for the profiles. It's a lot of work to get those profiles together, and in terms of the ongoing maintenance and what the plan is, given, you know, the new census data, the ACS data should be released in December, and then, you know, partway through next year we'll have new decennial census data as well.
Yeah, and that's really why one of the primary reasons why we moved to an online platform approach in partnering with Connecticut Data Collaborative, that updates are going to be much easier. The previous profiles were really handcrafted. And so each one took a very long time to develop. But now, similar to some of your dashboards, updating is going to be a lot easier. It's really just pointing to the new data sets. My hope, though, is to understand from users as we go forward what we can change, and making those modifications or additions or subtractions to the profiles as we move forward should be it will be a much simpler than handcrafting a whole new version. So they're going to be continuously updated, and no longer will we have a 2018 version, a 2015 version. The PDFs, printable PDFs, we heard in the development that it was really important for local folks, particularly. I think our primary users are often local planners, local people that care about housing and planning in the local level. They really, there was a lot. We got a lot of feedback that folks really wanted to retain the ability to print off a report in a simple format. In this case, we use a PDF. And so we're committed to retaining that, understanding that our users come at this from different places. So I think there was a question about recording. I'm not sure if it was answered,
Looks
but
like
yeah,
it was
all
answered,
these,
yes.
okay, it was answered. Yes, these sessions are all recorded. And I see Hoeen Flexer. Thank you for the compliment that she likes the new PSC profiles, and I appreciate that very much. Actually, Hoeen, now that I see your name there, one thing I think that we haven't done, and I was very aware of this when I recently presented for the Northeastern Council of Governments, is we don't have reports aggregated for the council governments, of which I've forgotten now because they've consolidated, but perhaps there's 9 of them now. So that's something that I think we would put on our list of future features, is that ability to aggregate, add up those towns into the region, where for indicators where it's possible, which I think are most of them. So oh, that would be helpful. Good. I'm glad. So if there aren't any other questions, we'll wrap up. I will just like to promote the next session, which I think is really interesting and focusing some on homeownership. I think something that housing advocates, at least in Connecticut in our work, I think we're really understanding, particularly around issues of segregation, both racially and economically. We really need to pay more attention to what our history of home ownership opportunity or lack of opportunity means, and focus on, really center the issues of race and segregation in conversations about home ownership. So please check into that, and I'll turn it over to Chelsea if you have anything, final words.
Sure, thanks. I was going to promote that session. I'm also going to pop in the chat that link to that 5-minute and 14-second survey for you. And before you leave, I'm going to launch a poll for you to give this session some feedback. It is anonymous, so you can be honest, but I think it was pretty great. So thank you to Sean and to Christopher, and for all of you for taking the time to learn about new ways to access data about affordable housing in Connecticut. So I'm going to launch that poll, and we look forward to seeing you on the next session.
Thank you.